Hey guys, this is Joe from Analog Archive back with another video. Today's video is going to be my vinyl finds for the month of February. Started out the month pretty slow, didn't really get a lot, but at the end of the month, this last week, I was able to take a trip to Rochester to visit my parents while I was on break for the week from teaching, and so I was able to check out a few of the stores in Rochester, along with one of the stores in Buffalo. So a lot of the finds for this month actually came from that trip last week, but we'll get started. So first one, this is Ornette Coleman Chappaqua Suite. This is a 2 LP session. Originally came out in France on the CBS label. This is a UK pressing from around that, the time it came out was like 66, 67, somewhere in there. Obviously Ornette Coleman, great free jazz player, started kind of that free jazz sound in the early 60s on Atlantic, and this is a great one. Don't see this one talked a whole lot about, but a really energetic, really great free jazz session if you ever do see it. Continue to find some more Pharoah Sanders this month. I actually have a few that'll be in this video. First one, Black Unity, really great cover. I've always loved this cover, and I finally was able to find a copy at the beginning of the month at the Bop Shop in Rochester. The album is composed of just a single piece that's broken into the two sides. You've got Pharoah Sanders prominently on the A side with his solo, along with Carlos Garnett and Marvin Peterson. So you've got kind of the horns solo on the A side, and then on the B side you get the more rhythm section. You've got the piano, the bass, the drums, and then that's the end of it. So really interesting one. Pharoah Sanders obviously being a great free jazz player as well. I always loved those really long kind of pieces, so this is definitely a good example of that. And again, really great cover to this. I've always really loved it, so great find for the month. Another Ornette Coleman. This one is Ornette Coleman Town Hall 1962. This is an original mono on ESP disc. I said at the beginning of the year that one of my collecting goals was to find as many ESP disc albums as I could, so I was able to find this one for a really good price in the basement at the Bop Shop. I've always said it pays to go down there and never know what you're going to find. So this is the original cover, kind of like a hand, almost like drawn cover. There's also another, kind of the second pressing had just a kind of black and white photo of Ornette Coleman on the front. That was it. There was no writing or anything on it. That's a really great one as well. But again, this was the original cover. Haven't had a chance to listen to this one yet, but very excited to have found this. So a great ESP disc. I talked about this at the beginning of the year. This was one of the albums that I really wanted to find in 2023, and I was able to find this at Needle Drop, a store that in Rochester that's prominently known for like punk, hardcore, kind of heavy metal type music, but he also occasionally gets in jazz, and he was able to find this one. So this is a Concert in Japan, John Coltrane. This one was from, I think, it was a trip that he took to Japan in, I think, let's see if it says on here, July 1966. You've got Pharoah Sanders, tenor sax, Rashid Ali on the drums, Alice Coltrane piano, and Jimmy Garrison on the bass as well. So you've got that kind of final quintet that John Coltrane had moved to after kind of moving past his original quartet with McCoy Tyner, Jimmy Garrison, and Elvin Jones. Jimmy Garrison's still on this, so he kind of stuck around longer than the other two did, but really great live session. Again, I've been really looking for this for a while, so to be able to find this was really good price. I've always really liked the cover. This is one of the posthumous releases. This didn't come out till 1973, but a really great one if you do see it. So still reasonably cheap for what it is. Another John Coltrane one I found this month. This is Meditations, John Coltrane. So last year I found First Meditations, which was an album that he did in like the summer of 1965. Still had the original quartet. And this is him doing those same tracks, but with his kind of second group. So you got Pharoah Sanders, still have McCoy Tyner, Elvin Jones, Jimmy Garrison, Rashid Ali. So you've got kind of a mixed bag of the older quartet players and then some of the newer players that he had until he unfortunately died in 1967. So this was from late 66. I was able to find this last week. And there's a bunch of records that are going to be part of this same collection. Record Archive, another great store in Rochester, got in a jazz collection, and they had a lot of really great stuff. This was one of the ones that they had gotten in. This is a 1972 copy on the red and black label, Impulse label. So this was one of the last Impulse John Coltrane albums that I needed. And so be able to find this good price, good pressing of it as well. Still has Van Gelder and the Dead Wax. Very excited about this. So happy to have found that this month. One of the things I did do, and I've already shown 2 albums by this artist, another Ornette Coleman. One of the things that I wanted to find this year was some of Ornette Coleman's albums. Was able to find this one this month. So this is New York Is Now. Ornette Coleman, you've got him. You've got, I believe, yep, it says on the front, Dewey Redman, great sax player, Jimmy Garrison, Elvin Jones. So you've got some of the players from John Coltrane's group. This is from like 1968, 67, 68. Great album by Ornette Coleman, really great free jazz sound to it, mixed with some kind of post-bop as well. So if you do see this one, this is an example of a lot of Liberty pressings where they're going to be a lot cheaper than the albums that came out before. The Blue Note was sold to Liberty, so if you do ever see these, definitely worth grabbing. But a great one here as well. So it's Ornette Coleman. I've seen this one posted, kind of shown on Instagram along with here on YouTube from time to time. This is Of Love and Peace. Larry Young mentioned that organ is not a huge kind of sound for me, but this album is great. I've found that I do like Larry Young's approach to the organ. So you've got Eddie Gale, trumpet, James Spaulding, alto sax, flute, Herbert Morgan on tenor sax, Larry Young's on the organ, Wilson Morman III is on drums, and Jerry Thomas is on the drums. Great free jazz sound to this one as well. Great one if you do see it. And very happy to have found this one. This is an original. This is actually a mono, even though now that I look at the back of the cover, you can actually see that it looks like it says stereo on that. So this one came out after the sale, but is a great one if you do see it. So that's Of Love and Peace, Larry Young. Another one I was able to find. This is Green Blues, Grant Green. So this is on Muse. This was originally Dave Bailey's record that came out in like the early 60s, like 1961 or so. 61, maybe 62. But very early Grant Green. That's some of my favorite playing by him. Some of the albums like Green Street, Grant's Stand, Grant's First Stand. All those albums coming out around the early 60s. Just really dialed in playing by Grant Green. When this was reissued in this is from 73. Grant Green was obviously probably the biggest name on the album. And so when it was reissued, they stuck his name on it instead. So been looking for this one. Knew that the original was not one that I probably was going to be able to find very easily. So Came across this one. This one was part of the Record Archive collection as well, so happy to have seen this. Continuing to add to the Grant Green collection, slowly closing in on all of his albums. Obviously, there's still quite a few albums that he's a sideman on. And again, this one was technically, he's a sideman on this, but great playing by him. You've got Frank Haynes on the tenor sax. He's got some great playing. Billy Gardner piano, Ben Tucker bass, and then again, the band leader was Dave Bailey on the drums. So a great one if you do see this one. Muse, a lot of these albums still very cheap, so come across this one, definitely worth grabbing in any form. So a great one to have there. Last bunch, getting into some of the bigger ones. So this is Marion Brown Quartet on ESP disc. So I was able to find four ESP disc albums this month. So this is the second one. This is Marion Brown. This one also came from the Record Archive collection. I was able to scoop this one up quick. Knew this one was kind of one of the bigger ones on ESP disc. So especially people like Marion Brown. So you've got him on sax, Alan Shorter's on the trumpet, Benny Maupin is on the sax. He plays sax on one track, but I've always loved Benny Maupin, so that was a nice addition for that. Ronnie Boykin is on the bass, Reggie Johnson's on the bass, and Rashid Ali is on the percussion. So really excited about this one. Another great free jazz session. This one, along with a lot of ESP discs, definitely tougher to find, but they're not also going to always run up the price tag. So not a super expensive one. This one was $50, so not super high for it, but a great one if you do see it. So that's Marion Brown Quartet. Before I bought this, I'd never seen this one before. Albert Ayler is another artist that I'm interested in getting into in 2023. Picked up a few of his albums. I got Bells on ESP disc last month, along with another album that he did in France in like 1970 before he had unfortunately died. But this one is from 1972. The opening track features Albert Ayler on the bagpipes, so an interesting sound there, but he makes it sound not like a traditional bagpipe would sound. It sounds almost like a soprano saxophone type sound. There's one track that has vocals on it. There's actually two tracks that have vocals, but really great and free jazz sound. I'm very excited to have found this one again. Never had even heard of this one before, so a great one from Albert Ayler. This was one of my favorite finds for the month, along with the concert in Japan. This was another album that I was really hoping to find this year. This is Deaf, Dumb, Blind, Pharoah Sanders. After listening to this, I would probably consider this to be my favorite Pharoah Sanders album, especially on Impulse. Just got a really great sound to it. That nice spiritual sound that he is known for. It's got its free jazz moments from time to time, but a very nice percussion kind of backing his playing. So really great playing. You've also got Woody Shaw on this, Gary Bartz, Lonnie Liston Smith, Cecil McBee, Clifford Jarvis, Nathaniel Bettis, Anthony Wiles. So great lineup as well. Really excited to have found this one as well. So I might be making a video that features this as well, because there's something somewhat not super unique, but an interesting aspect of this. So that might be a future video topic, but really happy to have found this one this month. Got a huge want off the list. Last few more ESP discs. This is Black Beings, Frank Lowe. This is one of the last ESP disc albums that was released from its kind of original run. So it started in like 1965, I believe, with at least recording jazz. And then there was like a slight hiatus in like the early 70s. This was recorded in like 72 and came out in 73. So you've got Frank Lowe, tenor sax. Joseph Jarman is on soprano sax and alto sax. He was part of the art ensemble of Chicago. You've got Rashid Sanan on drums. You've got the Wizard on the violin, and William Parker on bass. So this is a live session. The fidelity isn't the best, but it's definitely not bad either. It's just slightly more kind of muffled compared to a lot of other jazz that I've been listening to. But it still sounds really great on my setup, but a really great one. If you do see it, this is very free. At times there's squawking, squeaking, but there's also some really beautiful spiritual playing. So a great one if you like free jazz. So that's Black Beings, Frank Lowe. Last two, I'm very excited about this one. I got this one in Buffalo at Revolver Records. It's a great store. They've got some great stuff on there. I think it's on their eBay page. They got in a jazz collection a few months ago, and a lot of that stuff is still available. But I was able to find this one. This one was on their Discogs, and then when I went to Rochester last week, I was able to take a trip to pick this up. So this is Barrage Paul Bley Quintet. So you've got Marshall Allen alto sax, Dewey Johnson trumpet, Eddie Gomez bass, Milford Graves percussion, and Paul Bley is on the piano. Paul Bley did 2 albums on ESP disc. He had a trio album. There's a photo of just him, and then there's Barrage. There's 2 covers of this. I believe, mono cover was like red, and then there's this one that was kind of black and white. But the interesting thing is that while the cover is a stereo cover, the record is mono. It's a red label. So kind of an interesting mismatch. I'm not exactly sure how that happened, but great one. Got this for a really great price as well. So this is Paul Bley Quintet, another ESP disc added to the collection. This is probably the biggest find for the month, and definitely probably going to be at the end of the year, one of the top finds for the year. And this is Patah the Al-Daud, Alice Coltrane. Arguably one of her best records, one of the best jazz covers in my opinion. This one came out in November as part of the Verve by Request series. So you can find an affordable reissue, but this is the original pressing. This was the big find from that Record Archive collection. Jumped on this immediately when I saw this on Instagram when they posted it. I called them up and I was able to grab it, and luckily I was still in Rochester, so I was able to pick it up along with some of the other records. So this is a really great album, great playing. You've got Alice Coltrane on both the harp and the piano. Pharoah Sanders is on the tenor sax. He also plays the flute, along with Joe Henderson on both the sax and the flute. And this is just a great album. Not super free. There's a few kind of passages where it's a little bit more out there, but this is just very spiritual, very just really, really great sound. So very enjoyable one. Very happy to have been able to find this. This is a tough one to find, and the price that I paid for this was like at least half, if not a third of the price of what it could have been. So very happy to find this. This is in great condition. Cover's got some ring wear on the front and the back, but the album, I played it yesterday, sounded amazing. Very little noise to it. So very happy to find this, and definitely worth finding if you ever come across it. And again, there is the reissue. I've heard good things about the Verve by Request series. I know What Ken Brown, jazz vinyl collector here on YouTube, did a great review video a few months ago comparing his original to the reissue. So check that video out. But again, if you ever come across this, definitely worth grabbing. So that's it for the finds from the month of February. Again, month started out kind of slow. Had just picked up a few. The bulk of the stuff I picked up this month was from the trip this past week to Rochester. Able to find a lot of great stuff at quite a few different stores. So to be able to support different record stores, I was definitely happy to do so, because usually when I go to Rochester, I'm only able to find stuff at the bop shop. So great to be able to find that. But yeah, that's it for this video. If you like what you saw, please think about liking and subscribing if you have not already. And I will see you in the next vinyl video. Bye.